Am I dying? I think I'm dying. I don't want to die.
All I can say is help me, God, help me, God.
The gun violence crisis now led to more tragedy
More
this
violence
afternoon.
in the city of Philadelphia
Police there
tonight.
investigating a shooting that left
Multiple
3 young
shootings,
people
including
dead.
a teenager.
What are your thoughts about will I come home tonight? Do you ever think about that?
You don't know what it is to be a young black man in Philadelphia unless you walk in those shoes.
I don't sit in parked cars. Too many guys get sprayed up like in the car.
I can't count how many times I've seen a black man take his last breath.
Before the trigger's pulled, 1,001 thoughts go through their head. Say no, no, no. Yes, do it. No, no.
Selling drugs, that's synonymous with guns.
2 teens are dead after they were shot on North 56th Street.
An 18-year-old man is shot tonight. The epidemic of gun violence that police are trying to get
Gun violence is not the issue. It's a symptom of many, many issues.
That look in his face said trauma, undealt with trauma.
If we're taught that to be men, we gotta be violent, and we're taught that violence is normal, and then we live in a country that has all these guns, then we're creating a recipe for a violence epidemic, a gun violence epidemic.
The city is on pace to surpass last year's homicide.
I'm a black man in a crazy society, right? Not only did y'all shoot me, but now I gotta survive the rest of my life.
This pain don't never, ever go away until you dead. And we need help. We need help. We need to be talking to somebody.
For many years, I was part of the problem in my community.
You know, you lose that hope, and then when you find it with a vengeance.
Today, I'm blessed to be part of the solution.
So the best way to deal with hate is to deal with it in love and turn it around.
A lot of them don't know that word till someone comes to them and say, look, I believe in you. I want to see you succeed, and I love you enough to want to see you 20 years from now.
Thank you again, everybody, for joining us this afternoon for the special screening of Trigger. My name is Gabe Bryant. I'm the DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Community Engagement Equity Manager for the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services, or for short, DBHIDS. We are the mental health and behavioral health serving institution for the city of Philadelphia, and we proudly have brought you this film in partnership with our colleagues over at First Person Arts. One of the things that we did when we launched this project, this film project, was to understand the importance of an initiative that we built and developed that I had the honor of leading, called EMOC, EMOC, which stands for Engaging Males of Color. And that's designed to promote mental health and wellness for men and boys of color here in Philadelphia. We've worked to do 3 things and do 3 really main goals in partnership with First Person Arts. That is to increase access and awareness to behavioral health services for men and boys of color here in Philadelphia, to also reduce the stigma associated with mental health and behavioral health, and to also overall build health literacy. And so with those 3 ideals, as an EMOC initiative, we've done some great things across the city of Philadelphia, but also across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as well at large. And so we also want to thank our partners with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, certainly Executive Director Lassiter. One of the things that we wanted to share also is that this film is part and parcel of a series of programming that we do, not only at DBHIDS, but also at First Person Arts. From the DBHIDS side, we're working every day to make sure that folks in our communities have access to mental health care, to substance misuse care, and ways to live and thrive. We're also always working to make sure that the care that people receive and the services that they receive is equitable, right? And so we operate from a tech lens, which means that we're working to address trauma, achieve equity, and engage community. That is our TEC tech lens. So with that being said, what I want to do is thank you all for joining us. Also, Philadelphia launched the 988 crisis line back in the summer of 2022, which is now nationwide. And this is a suicide hotline as well as a mental health hotline. If anybody needs any type of mental health services anywhere in the country, 24/7, you can dial 988. I'm sure that as children, we were all sort of raised to understand what 911 meant, right? To get emergencies, to get the police. 988 is now a new line that you can access that will give you 24/7 mental health care, so that you can talk to somebody, get some immediate relief. But to also, if somebody needs to come out, somebody's having an episode, they can do the same without a officer present. All right. And obviously, if things were to escalate, that would be dependent on the discernment of the health professional who comes out. But it's been a great success for the past 2 years as community members begin to access that line. Again, 988, and you can go to 988philly.org for more information. With that being said, I want to see if we can open it up for our next stage of this program. I want to bring in our panelists who will be sharing tonight. And we have some great questions, and hopefully if there are any questions or perhaps Q&A from the stream, if those can be monitored and put in our chat as well, we can get to those towards the end. But I want to bring in some phenomenal folks who have been with us for a long time and who you all have seen just now in our film. We have with us Chuck Horton, who has been fantastic with us. Chuck Horton is a community leader. He's somebody who's an advocate for those who have various disabilities, particularly those who are in wheelchairs. And he also has been really on the front line working with young people to think about how we can work towards bettering their lives. And of course, we have the amazing Roz Pichardo. As you see, she is the executive director of Operations Save Our City. And through the traumas of her life and through the traumas of her lived experience, has turned it around into some phenomenal work here in the city and really across the country. So I want to actually start with you, Chuck. We saw as you opened up the film, providing a very powerful sort of initial statement about how it felt to be on the ground after what happened to you as far as being shot. Take us through, if you can, just how are you able to cope still after so many years since that experience? And coping with your mental health, that is.
Well, yeah. Well, it's a day-to-day process. You know, you can't ever, like, with me, I'm when I wake up in the morning, I'm reminded of that day because I get out of bed and it's my body has changed. So I have to deal with my mental health and trying to like live, you know, find myself every day, find my way in this world that is sometimes ever changing, and sometimes it's difficult for me. Just getting out the house, you know, getting into my car, getting into just live and kind of almost being judged with get judgmental eyes as I leave the fortress of my house, and people look at me differently. Where they go from not always my face, sometimes it's the chair up. That those judgmental eyes is really, really difficult, and it mess with your mental health. So you have to really have a strength that you have to pull from somewhere. And if it's religious, if it's your community, you have to do something. And so I know that my foundation in my religion and in my foundation in my beliefs gives me the strength to go day to day, but it's difficult, and it's there all the time.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. And I think that the difficulty that you speak to resonates, I'm sure, with our attendees who are watching, who may have folks in their family also dealing with similar challenges, also trying to work through them as well. Roz, one thing that I want to get to with you is you talk about Operation Save Our City and the goal to save our city, right? And obviously sometimes that can bring about non-traditional means to do so, and trying to like meet folks where they are. You know, if you can talk a bit about the work that you've done with your organization, and how sometimes it might be sort of out of the scope that some might like, but it's actually a way that can be actually effective.
Yes, so my work has always been, kind of keeping people alive, um, essentially. I think working as a trauma advocate has really led me to a different approach on how we do that. Not only am I working with people with substance use, but also working with dealers, working with folks around violence prevention and intervention, um, providing the community with these community kits, which is a tourniquet to stop the bleed if someone's stabbed or shot, Narcan if someone overdoses, gun locks if someone needs it. So these kits are essential for a community like mine of Kensington, who's riddled with gun violence and overdoses. So each neighborhood is a little bit different, but because I live and I work here, and I'm sorry it might be a little loud because the train is going by. Um, and my center is right underneath the train. So we do the best that we can as a small organization, but it's so essential. I mean, during COVID, we gave over 3,000 community kits, and over the last year, we gave now maybe over 2,000. So we're small but mighty crew, and just getting people prepared for anything that may happen on the block. And I think again, talking to dealers until they're ready to get off the streets. I want to keep them alive. If one of your boys up the street is shot, let me show you how to stop the bleed. If you selling this stuff on the street, and we obviously know that fentanyl and xylozine's on the street, dead people can't recover. So let me give you some Narcan to get folks in case they OD. So we're working on it, and we're going to just keep doing it until uh until we can't no more.
That's right. I'm actually going to stay with you, Ross, because there's also a very poignant, moment in the film. Um, Again, at all of these screenings that we have you on, we always send our continued condolences to your family. You've had some tremendous loss in your family, as we've seen in the film. But by the end of it, you talk about this hope with Avengers. Can you talk about just the steps that it took to get you to that hope? For many of our folks who are watching in Hazelton, who might be going through similar challenges of loss, they might be searching for, different means and ways to process. So maybe this could be helpful if you can share some of your journey.
Yeah, I mean, hope for me is so important because man, I mean, I've lost so much. I've lost my twin sister to suicide, my brother to murder, my boyfriend to murder, my dad because of the ripple effect. It's traumatic, it's hard, and when you find hope, hold on to it. And that's what I was chose to do. That's what I chose to do because I was suffering so much. And when I found it, I just did not want to let go because I know that not only I needed it, my mom and my family needed it more than I did. So, um, and our faith, I think that's so important that we emphasize, whatever faith that we have, hold on to that too. I mean, it's just so crucial to the healing process and the forgiveness process, all of it.
Yeah, I love what you said about the healing process, right? Because I think that certainly, not only for our folks in Hazleton, but also certainly for anybody watching this conversation today, healing can be, as we know, not only just an overnight thing. It's not a weekly thing. It's a monthly. It's an annual thing. It's an annual process. It's a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, process. And so, for you, Chuck, you talk often about the healing journey, not only of yourself, but the folks who you work with, folks who also find themselves also in the chair, who are going through their own healing process and healing journey. Talk a bit about that work, why it's so important, and some of the stories that you've seen that have been quite impactful and meaningful.
Yeah, my connection at that is horrible. But did you say just talk about some of the work that I do with individuals that's in chairs post gun violence?
Yes. And just what's been
Okay.
impactful about that process.
So yeah, we have in here the sirens. Okay, the sirens going past in the offices. Let's say.
No problem. It's all good.
So a lot of them are in wheelchairs. But then we also have a lot of people who are not in wheelchairs, but also are gunshot survivors. And in that process, we try to take them from incident to independence. And in that, we kind of find them where they are. A lot of people, like, we have people who have been incarcerated, who have had very troubled lives, never thought they could go to college. We actually get them set up for college. We actually get them different funding sources to assist them. And we have people who graduate in college who are living on their own, driving things that they never did when they were walking. Now they're doing it in a chair. And it's just like, I never thought I could have these things. I never thought I could achieve these goals. But the bullet that entered their body changed their lives in the bad way, but sometimes it changed their life in a good way. And it's just weird to say that, you know, it's weird to say that my life is better now from the bullet. The life that they lived and everything around them taught them that this was the way to go and this is the way to achieve, because they never had the support system. They never had people around them that showed them a way of life that the streets could give them the same exact thing, but in the proper way of being a part of the system in the right way. And so when we really take them and we show them knowledge, learn from going down, they can people to be better individuals, to be better family members, and be a better support system. So it trickles down, and that's the positive part of it. But it's just still a lot that they all have to go through. But we want to be there for them as a family, to show them that you have people, you have a support system, and we'll always be there for you.
I love the way you said, we'll always be there for them, and sort of that level of connection that's required. I'm often thinking about, the loss in my own life when it comes to, tragedies of gun violence. And I think it's really a lot of the intentionality that led me to the work that I'm doing now around gun violence, really working really all day, every day with men and boys of color here in the city of Philadelphia, but also around the country, providing supports and resources. I'm on a 30-year healing journey, I always say, from the shooting death of my cousin, one of my favorite cousins, who was killed when he was 16. I was 14. Somebody who meant the most, everything to me, right? We played ball together, hooped together. We, had G.I. Joes and Transformers together and Thundercats. Somebody whose younger brother, my other cousin, is still very close to us. But I know we all still feel the loss even 30 years later. We were teenagers. And then also, I'm on the 20-year healing journey of a friend of mine from college, who was a friend of ours, and he was part of the crew and actually was in the military. And while I'm serving, sort of post, in Iraq, post 9/11, did about 9 months there. And he was in the Middle East in direct combat. I'm talking shooting tanks, gunfire, avoiding mines, the whole 9 yards. And then came home and then literally was killed on the streets by gun violence within 3 weeks. So if you can imagine somebody who was in direct combat in the war for 9 months, but to be killed at home, was very tragic and traumatic, not only for his family members, but for his loved ones, his friends, and everybody else. And for us still, we raise his name up, and we're thinking about our friends and colleagues and loved ones who we want to acknowledge in these types of spaces, because we're all growing and healing. And that's been a big part of my own story as I kind of think about the trajectory of our work. And so, when you hear that, Roz, I know that one of the things that you've talked about often, and you say in the film, is this idea that, with all these folks, there's something about, masculinity and manhood where you mentioned that your dad, didn't want to cry, right? And so I want you to, if you can, with however much you can, talk about this, share what you've seen, and how we can be better, or what you've seen can be better. When men and boys allow themselves to emote and to tap into their emotions and feelings.
It's so important to remind our people that it's okay to feel what we feel. Losing someone to homicide is traumatic, it's emotional. And at times people feel like they don't want to cry because they're afraid of what others may think, or they may think to see that as someone is weak. My dad just wouldn't didn't have that. It was hard for him to express that emotion. And I would say to him, it's okay to go through what you're going through. And it was just so hard at the end to watch what happened. He would talk negative unto himself. I wish I would die and not wake up. And he will say that every day because he couldn't find my brother's shooter, because the case is unsolved. And that's why it's just so important for us to, one, watch what we speak onto ourselves, and two, remind our people it's okay to feel this pain. And like I said, he ultimately went to sleep and just never woke up. Practicing that self-care is so, so important for the healing process, for us to heal, for us to forgive, because the gift of forgiveness is the most powerful thing that we can give to ourselves, because forgiveness is not for the other person but so much for ourselves. So for me, forgiving my boyfriend shooter, forgiving my brother's shooter, forgiving my twin sister, all of this stuff comes with the healing process. And we have to know that each other's journey is different, but it's so necessary for us to be able to move forward and have a full life of knowing that it's okay for us to feel what we feel, and we get stronger. Anytime trials and tribulations come our way, we get stronger, and we're equipped to deal with that next trauma that comes. Hopefully no more trauma comes, but we're equipped. We're able to deal with some of it.
Yeah, and I think that being equipped is so powerful because and by the way, for folks who are watching, please continue to put your questions in the chat. We will begin to raise those questions now. Again, please, if you have questions or even comments, feel free to put those in the chat. But definitely, we want to get to the questions. Thanks to James Burns. James says, "What is the biggest source of hope or healing in your day-to-day? For all or any of the three of you here today, I realize this has been addressed a bit already."
I can tap
Jump in,
into
please.
that a little bit.
Mhm.
So every day I practice self-care, every single day, no matter how small or how big it is, I practice it. Whether every day in the morning before I do anything, I spend my 5-10 minutes a day, whether that be grieving, whether that be meditating, whether that be reflecting, or just sitting on my backyard and just drinking tea or whatever. I have to do something every day um, because of the immense loss. And I'm sure a lot of us go through a lot of stuff. So that has to go somewhere. You don't want to bring it to the workplace. You don't want to bring it on your walk to work. Deal with it in a way that's of your own. And so I do that every day, because every day there's something. It's an anniversary of some sort. There's a birthday. There's a reminder of the loss. So find somewhere for that pain to go so that you can go on with your day, but don't dwell. You don't need to be there for 20 minutes. Don't let that consume you either. So let that be that, and then move on with your day. That's how I deal with my grief and my pain and my traumas on a daily.
How about for you, Chuck? Can you hear us, Chuck? He may be having some issues with his connection still. But I can sort of get at some of the question around healing and what gives me hope. I can honestly tell you that for me, it's certainly been from a self-care standpoint. Being around loved ones, being around people who care about me and who I care about, people who keep me accountable, people who invest in me and who I invest in as well, supports and love and tenderness. And I think also incorporating a thorough knowledge of self. Um, it's very, very important to know from where you came and from whence you came, to understand the importance of ancestors and family and generations. We talk often in our communities about breaking generational curses, right? That's always the word of the day, breaking generational curses. But we don't talk about accepting generational blessings and accepting generational love, accepting generational power. Those are the things that were passed down from grandmom and grandpop and pop and great grands and aunties and uncles who, gave you that sense of pride and those senses of wisdom and a sense of, understanding and knowledge. And seeing those folks, whether they're, bio family or chosen family, who can kind of instill into you those types of ideals and histories that can really, help you sort of see that you're part of a bigger promise and part of a bigger purpose. I think oftentimes when I speak to some of the young men in particular who I know are having some challenges and difficulties, often it's coming from a lack of self-worth, right? It's a lack of self-worth. It's a acceptance that things are as they are, and there's no sense of possibility, right? And so I think being able to connect folks to a thorough knowledge of self and culture, tradition, and pride is just one of many things from a self-care, paradigm that can help to bolster one's self-esteem, confidence, and wanting to, as Anton said in the film, see more, do more, and be more. I'm not sure, Chuck, if you're back with us, if you can answer that question as well. James asked about, how do you get through every day? And also, what are your sources of self-care?
Well, how do I get through every day? It's just you have to just keep pushing. That's just my thing. Just don't stop. And like my self care is. I think my self care is my work. By working with individuals, I've been in chair for 35 years. Kind of my space of mental health and taking care of myself is by seeing other people flourish and seeing people like achieve. That makes me happy. That makes me feel like a sense of accomplishment, and it makes me just feel like that makes me feel good. You know what I mean? That brings me peace.
Yeah. We have another question here from KL Smith. I think I might know this person. But have you ever held healing events utilizing various forms of the arts, i.e. writing, poetry, movement, songs, music, and crafts? Have you ever been a part of that? And by the way, this person here, I believe, is a master drummer, from looking at the photo correctly. Somebody who champions the drum, more importantly, champions the culture in her work. But yeah, great question. Have you ever held healing events that utilize, music and arts and the culture? Anybody want to touch on that?
I have definitely. I think the space that I'm in now brings a lot of that. We do a lot of art program here. We have a lot of open mic nights, movie nights. There's also like a lot of activism work using images of our loved ones who've been taken from us, particularly our unsolved cases. We do a lot of work with our images, a lot of work with gun show casings, a lot of that kind of medium to do our work. Yeah. Yep.
How about for you, Chuck?
Yeah, so I was the former chair of the board for Disability Pride PA. So I'm the chair of board emeritus now. And what we do a lot of the poetry readings, music, opportunities for the community to really express themselves. And I think it's really, really important to express yourself in any form way, because we have art. Some people, they just draw, some people they write, some people sing. It's just an opportunity to purge with what's within. And one of the main things I know that with a lot of the individuals with our gunshot group, I always tell them to journal. And that journaling and purging of your feelings is so, it gives you strength, because when you internalize it and you think nobody really understands you, it just kind of eats at your soul. But when you kind of purge it out with your journaling, and it's only you and that paper and that pen, and you just letting everything out, you're actually healing yourself, because you're just letting off those layers and layers of things that you can't say to anyone else, that you might feel like they're going to judge you. So you purge with that pen in that book, and just let it all out. And I always say, don't go back and read it, because you might judge yourself on what you wrote. Just let it out, get it through, and then you will feel better. Because that's how I healed myself as well.
Yeah, I mean, same. I think as somebody who works in a department focusing on mental health and wellness and behavioral health, and is full of jargon and acronyms, it's a must for us to use arts, crafts, open mics, everything, right? We know that if we say, hey, we're coming from DBHIDS to come to you talk about your mental health, we'll get 10 folks in the room. But if we say we're going to have a hip hop night, we can have spoken word, and then we're going to do salsa afterwards, then we'll have 100, right? And so it just speaks to the idea that people understand culture, people understand the relevance of ways to, utilize community, whether that's dance and even like stuff like yoga and Pilates. People want to move. Movement is medicine, right? And so I think that because movement is medicine, people like to be able to move and engage their intelligence and their talents and their gifts and all kinds of things. So definitely we've done music and so on and so forth. We've done, for instance, block parties around mental health and wellness. We'll have our resource fairs or what have you, health fairs in general. We always make sure to have a nice DJ who's, doing their thing, and to also incorporate people who have various levels of art with it. And I think it's important to note in my closing comment on this that we bring in other and various kinds of art, right? Like things that people aren't perhaps used to. I've noticed can also be a great way to engage folks, right? So like we know the things that will work, right? We know that if we do, an oldies or like a bop session or like a hip hop session or whatever it is, that it'll break folks out. But, what if we had young people come out and they're doing a game night, right? And I'm saying gaming, right? And they're playing for like 3 hours, or we're doing an anime night for youth, right? I mean, there are different ways to engage folks based on their varied interests. Let's see if there's any other questions in the chat. And as we're kind of going to see if there are any other questions in the chat, again, we want to thank you all for watching from wherever you're watching. We thank you all. And once again, we do want to thank not only our partners with First Person Arts, we also want to thank our director of the film, Glenn Holston, who has been fantastic in this journey. And we also want to thank, once again, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. Also, we're going to be sharing in the chat as well. We'll be putting in, our colleagues will be putting in some resources that are available. So particularly for our folks out in Hazelton, we have some resources that we're about to drop actually in the chat that is available for you. So once again, if you have, watched this film and you're engaging right now in this panel discussion, those are numbers and links that you can utilize and access towards your health and wellness, certainly for us folks here in Philadelphia, certainly 988 for sure. But also we're here at dbhids.org. You can also email me at emoc@phila.gov, phila.gov. And more importantly, you can just, continue to access us. If you're interested in storytelling and ways to engage stories as a medium to guide, healing and to guide hope, please access firstpersonarts.org for more information and for more info about events that are upcoming, because they are doing and we are doing a phenomenal job at that. As we're getting to our final questions, I want to just raise to the both of you all, right, to both Chuck and Roz. We talk a bit about the traumas of the gun violence, and what do you think it'll take for us to reduce these numbers? I know that in the film, Mark Lamont Hill talked a lot about some of the services and supports. Young people talked about some of their ideas, right? The guidance, the rec centers, and so on and so forth. What have you seen, and what do you think it's going to take to see a significant reduction in gun violence that might affect us from Philadelphia to Hazelton and beyond?
I think we need to focus on policy and legislation and what that looks like. Again, background checks, making sure that people don't have easy access, dealing with the straw purchasing, making sure that we vote, And it's just so important. Again, policy and legislation is so, so key, making sure that these bills are passed on the House floor so that, the firearms aren't so easily accessible to our young folks. And let's focus more on these ghost guns as well. Make them illegal for them to even manufacture, even make parts for the ghost guns, because we are seeing an increase in homicides with ghost guns.
How about for you, Chuck? Any thoughts, Chuck, on what is it going to take to reduce the gun violence, rather? Just want to make sure that you're getting connected. I know that you're having some issues. Can you hear us, Chuck?
I think he's frozen.
Excuse me. One thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Say it again, Raj.
Okay. Seems to be some issues. But in either way, what we'll do is we'll move on to closing. First of all, we want to thank you all for joining us this evening. We're able to do these virtual sessions and to engage folks in a way that is real, hopefully in a way that is honest, in a way that hopefully that is transparent, but also in a way that's meaningful. We did this for you all in a way that can be authentic, sincere, and genuine, right? We want to thank you all for watching the film. Hope you will tell more people about us and about this film as we begin to roll it out beyond even this summer. Our goals towards having it available for you all to utilize on your own and for your own houses of faith in your own communities as well. Look forward to seeing that later on this year. And then also, I just want to once again emphasize the work ahead, which is the work of hope, help, and healing. That's really been these three ideas that I know our champion, Jamie Brunson, who is the executive director of First Person Arts, always likes to outline for us, right? Hope, help, and healing. And certainly Jamie Brunson and the entire First Person Arts team have really made this possible for us and in a valuable partnership. And so once again, on behalf of the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services, or DBHIDS for short, I want to thank you. Again, my name is Gabe Bryant. Continue to access our services and all the resources that are in the chat, and be safe out here. And if you can, encourage somebody else along the way. Thank you very much. Be well. Be safe.